Good morning, everybody. This is Nathaniel Provincia with my very good friend, Dr. Worcester. What's up, my friend?
Good morning. Good morning, Nathaniel. How you doing, man?
I'm all right, man. It's been one of those kind of like crazy mornings where it's just like or first world problems. You know what I mean? This is like everything is kind of like nothing's working and all kinds of stuff is going wrong. But it's all right because I got Chris Singleton here on the show with us on the Community Connection. Good morning, Chris. How you doing, my friend?
Good morning, or should I say bon dia to you, right?
Bom
Ooh.
dia, tudo bem? Bom
Tudo
dia,
bem.
tudo bem. Chris and I were just chatting a little bit, and this show's called the Community Connections, and we're always trying to figure out that connection that we have. And Chris and I are both esposas or sposos, husbands
Yes.
to Brazilian significant others. So there you go. Look at that connection, Chris. Hey, man. So tell me a little bit about your better half. How'd you guys meet? Just real quick, because it's probably a good story in and of itself.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. So my wife moved over from Brazil when she was pretty young to the States, and we actually are high school sweethearts.
Oh,
So,
okay.
we met in
You
high
gotta do that.
school at this little restaurant, this fine gourmet college spot called Cookout. I don't know if you guys have Cookout where
Oh,
you're at, but
Best hush puppies, sort of.
yeah,
The
yeah.
most
So we
convenient hush puppies.
Yeah, man. So we met at Cookout, and we've been together, three beautiful kids, and so yeah, that's my wife, my better half. I love her to life, and yeah, so things are great. But that's how we have that Brazilian connection because my wife is from Brazil.
Yeah, I love it, man. My wife is from Sao Paulo. Just a remarkable story, and she came to the United States via like an au pair program to be able to kind of just do something to get out. She's brilliant. She speaks three languages. She does all kinds of good work for advocacy, and we go back every year. And every year, I'm humbled. Like when you go to a country, Eric, you know this. When you go to a country where you are absolutely the minority, and seeing that culture and having to learn and like, are they talking about me or are they not talking about me, like what's going on. It's really fun, but man, beautiful culture. I don't know if you're down with a lot of the Brazilian food, like the feijoada and the
Oh
the
yeah,
picanha and the caprainas. You know what
yeah,
I
yeah,
mean? It's
yeah.
just like, that's all I need. That's all I need.
All of
But I
it.
get a little tired of beans and rice. I mean, there's only so much beans and rice that this guy can take.
Every day, that's their staple. Every day. Arroz feijão, todos os
Always
dias.
beijão. I love it. I love it, man. Now,
so
do you speak Portuguese?
Well, I've been learning. I've been with my wife for over a decade, so I'd say I'm not all the way fluent, but I
Yeah.
can understand quite a bit. But my goal is to be fluent, right? That's my
Yeah.
goal, and I'm not there just yet. So got a little
It's
work to
hard,
do
man.
still.
Nathaniel, how's your
I
Portuguese coming?
terrible, terrible. So when I'm in Brazil, the word that I use the most is misculpa, which is my fault. Because I'm
You
always
say
like
you're
bumping
in
into
Braz-
people or do
you're in
misculpa,
Brazil,
misculpa.
Nathaniel?
Obrigado.
Or in your marriage? Which one is it?
Oh, both,
All
both,
right.
both. That's basically it. But yeah,
So,
man, my wife
Nathaniel,
doesn't speak Portuguese. To me, she speaks it to everyone else. You know what I mean? Unless she's
Same.
really upset with me. She's really upset with me. It'll come out a little bit. So
That's funny.
anyway,
you were just in Brazil, and Chris, you said you're going there soon. What are some for our listeners? If they're going to Brazil, what should they target? What should be on their Brazil
mm,
list?
Yeah, I'd say first for me, the reason why I love it is every single day for me is just family oriented, right? So all the cousins, all the uncles and aunties and grandma, like multiple times throughout the week, they'll just have a big meal at someone's house and everybody goes over there. So the family unit super tight. I usually wake up in the morning, get me some coffee, a little misto quente, which is basically like a, fried ham and cheese and bacon and all with some fried egg on it. So like it's a little staple for me. Pound de queijo is like their
pound of queijo.
traditional, yeah, traditional breakfast cheese bread. But the food's amazing and the family, how everybody's so close, is what is really making me say, you know what, let's take this adventure having our family there part time for the next couple of years while our kids are young. So, yeah, just the family or like the family unit is super important. So I love that.
That's great. Drop. what I wouldn't do is drive. Driving in the
different.
city is like anxiety all over the place, man. Like I drove in the city, Sao Paulo, with like the stick shift, because like cars are
Oh
really
yeah.
expensive there. It's a luxury, right? And like you've got like thousands of like just really fast motorcycles all over the place, and like, but everyone's so polite. No one's cussing anyone. No one's flipping the middle finger.
Yeah.
It's just everyone is just like craziness,
Everything's a
but it's a
roundabout
polite.
too.
Everything's roundabout. Everything's roundabout. But one last thing before we get in the meat of this podcast, pizza is like a really different thing in Brazil. Chris, I don't know if you've had Brazilian pizza.
Yeah,
They
totally
put
different.
eggs on that junk. They put eggs and like green olives with the seeds on it and like corn. I'm like, who puts corn and like fried it and like boiled eggs on pizza? It's
Yeah.
delicious. It's delicious, man.
I'm gonna have
I
to
don't
go with
know.
the American pizza before I go with the Brazilian pizza, though. Honestly, hot dogs too. They're a little different over there, but
Oh, the hot dog. I ain't putting mayonnaise on my hot dog. I don't know what's up about that.
that's funny,
Oh,
man.
but
That's
but
awesome.
pizza, Chris, is a thing because I'm actually a fan of Chicago deep dish pizza. I think
Oh
that's
yeah.
actually the best. And I think you have a Chicago connection, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So you got Giordano's, Luminati's, like the two big staples, right? But yeah, I got drafted by the Cubs, man. Got drafted by the Chicago Cubs, made a dream come true of
Mhm.
playing professional baseball. Unfortunately, didn't have the 10-year, $100 million
Mm.
contract year or career, but I had fun. I chased my dream, and it's something I always wanted to do is play professional sports. And I'm grateful that the Cubs gave me that opportunity. I'll always be a Cubs fan, right? I saw my
Mm.
first licensed therapist when I was playing for the Cubs because it was free, right? They had free therapy for all their minor leaguers, which is like unheard of. And so the Cubs are a super amazing organization from top to bottom. It doesn't matter if you are, you Darvish when I was there, or Jason Hayward, or Schwarber, all these massive stars, Javi, or if you're just a guy that just got signed out of the Dominican Republic, like they treated you
Mm.
well. It didn't matter who you were, and so that's what I love about their organization.
Eric, did you ever play baseball?
I did. Little League, shortstop.
Little league.
Very, very
Shortstop.
impressive. So, Chris, you come up to DC area. We'll have a game.
I love it. Okay.
911
Uh,
speed
I
cut.
I was I was a pitcher. I was
Ah.
left-handed, and so I had like a natural kind of like curve kind of thing, kind of throwing left-handed sidearm. Played first base in high school, and then I just like stopped. I was like 5'9", 160. Because I was like a big kid, like sort of like in high school. When everyone else is that. And then I peaked, and then I was like, no more. That was like ninth grade, 10th grade was the peak of my athletic capability. But Chris, I did a little research. You weren't just a good baseball player, man. You were like an all-around, just tremendous athlete. Is that correct?
Yeah, man, I played. So growing up, I played all the sports, and then by the time I got to middle school, I focused on basketball and baseball. And so I was, all conference for basketball. We went to state championship my junior season in high school. We ended up losing state championship, but man, I just had so much fun. Like the most fun I've ever had on a team competitively is my high school basketball team because I had the best coach of my life. Right. When I speak a lot of times, I mention this guy, Coach Blake Hall. My wife and I, we actually still sponsor our high school basketball team
Wow.
because of this guy who has
Wow.
had so many opportunities to go to like these prep schools and to go even play coach college, but he stayed in the high school ranks and he wants to be like a staple for that school, and
Oh, wow.
an amazing guy. So yeah, I played basketball, was pretty good. um, but baseball was definitely, I was better at that because I mean I'm 6'1". Back in high school I was like 150, 155,
Yeah.
right? And so I wasn't like I was pretty athletic, but nowadays they got point guards that are 6'6", and so
Oh, yeah.
like my projectability in basketball wasn't as much as baseball. So I knew what sport I was probably going to keep playing for the long run.
And you played multiple positions, I guess, in baseball. I guess that's how it's worked, right? Where you don't just play one position.
Yeah, yeah. So in high school, I started off playing like, shortstop, third base, center field. I'd pitch every now and then. And then by like my sophomore, junior season, I pretty much was a staple in center field. I think I moved to like, short and third if they needed, if the shortstop came to pitch or the third baseman came to
Yeah.
pitch, we'd move around. Um, but by the time I got to college, it was just playing outfield. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, that's pretty outstanding, man. I love it.
Just asking about the multiple sports people play. Did either of you, to continue this digression, did either of you watch or hear about any of the like the Fanatics thing where they had athletes and fans participate in all these different events?
Mm-mm.
No,
So
it's
they had football players and they had baseball players all compete in like they had to do some golfing and some hockey, some football and baseball, all these different things. And so from a multiple of sports areas, any idea who won in the inaugural year? What athlete could transcend like all these different sports? And I'll say
oh
they are
Mookie Betts. I'd say Mookie Betts can do
okay.
everything.
Nathaniel.
Oh,
Mookie Betts is great.
just name an athlete. Oh,
And
I don't.
I'm gonna give you a hint, Nathaniel. I'm gonna give you a hint. It's not Mookie Betts, but Mookie Betts played on a team in the same area as the person who won. So Mookie Betts isn't there now, but was there previously. Does that help you at all? New England or one
Tom
of New
Brady?
England.
Tom Brady.
Yep. And I
Huh.
wasn't even close. Like Tom Brady blew them all. And watching him do like 3-pointers is amazing. Just to see how people can be athletic in so many different areas. What? Because I know he's a golfer too. But if you get a chance, watch some of the highlights. And there were so many different athletes from all over. What was that Giants? Eli Manning was there, so Tom
Oh yeah.
got to beat Eli, and it was great. Just
I
great
gotta check that out. That's pretty
watching
cool.
athletes in different areas. To get back to baseball, just a kind of a baseball question. Baseball is kind of built on failure in a way because if you're a great player, you're hitting 300, and that means 7/10 of the time you're not hitting. How does that help you, or how did baseball help you learn and help you grow from mistakes?
Mm.
Yeah, that's a good question. First you got to have a short memory in baseball
Wow.
because you can look absolutely silly on one pitch and you can square the next one up perfectly. But if you're thinking about your last swing and how dumb you looked, right, then you're already beat. And so having that short memory, and you've got to be confident as well, right, in sports, in baseball, especially and in life, because in a sport like baseball, if you get into the box and you think you're defeated, there is no chance when a guy's throwing 95, 96 with some sinker, some cut. You got no chance if you don't think you can do it. And so
Mm.
having that confidence piece is also super important. Same thing for me when I with the when I share now in my perspective and my mission of unity and teaching love. So like if I'm not confident in what I'm sharing, then people will read right through that. So you have to
Yes.
be confident in what you're doing. I think baseball taught me that, but also what a lot of people will say is like, you can be successful 3 out of 10 and be a Hall of Famer. In baseball,
Mm.
I also think out of those 10 at bats, maybe 6 of them will be good at bats. Like I'll hit the ball hard and it goes right to the shortstop. There's nothing you can
Mm.
do, right? And
Yep.
in life, you do everything perfect and it doesn't work out. Hey, that's a part of it, right? Like what I always tell my son, I
Wow.
say, hey man, that's baseball. You smoked it up the middle, guy made a diving play. That's baseball, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Or you hit it off your thumbs and it was a dribbler to the third baseman and you beat it out. Hey, good hustle. That's
Yep.
baseball. Sometimes you didn't do anything perfect, didn't have the perfect interview, you didn't say the perfect whatever, but you gave it your all and people saw that and you were rewarded for your hard work. That's life. That's baseball. So I think all those different things um, that I took away from the game.
Do
Wow.
they do anything like your coaches to train you mentally? Because I think that seems like it would be a very hard part to not get down yourself, not get defeated, to come back to every at bat with that confidence. Do they train you at all for that?
Yeah, I think just continually hearing that, like respecting the game, right? Respecting your craft, like all those things we'd hear. Like when I was with the Cubs, they had something called Respect 90,
Mm.
Joe Madden. So what that meant was no matter where you hit the baseball, you can hit it right to the pitcher and you know you're out. But you're gonna run down first base because you're gonna respect the game, right? So all
Mm.
these different things they would instill into us. And we also had something they call take the stairs, which meant like, hey, there might be an elevator, there might be an escalator, but take the stairs, take the hard route to really appreciate where you're going. And so all these different things, these mantras we
That's
had,
awesome.
they kind of help, shape you as a human being. I definitely think our coaches were there because I mean, at a certain point, like your swing is your swing. You might make a tweak here or there. At a certain point, it's all mental. It's a mental battle. You're playing chess with the pitcher. You're playing, chess with the opposing team's pitching coach. Right? All those things come into play for sure.
Here's a question that I have as going back to Eric's question with the coaches. And this is all with well intention, right? Do the coaches want to prepare you to be a better human being or to be a better athlete? Or is it both? Like when you get to that level, you're Joe Maddens, the coaches that you work with. Is it about the profession or is it about the professional?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it has to be about winning because if they don't win, then they're fired, right? That's
Yeah.
number one, right? That's just the way that it is. That's just life. You got to produce results or you won't be there. And so that's definitely a part of it. But it's also about winning the right way. There are some coaches, there's some managers that say, hey, we're going to do things the right way. One of the managers I had, Jimmy Gonzalez, in the minor leagues, was a phenomenal manager because he played for a long time and he knew, hey, at a certain point during the summer, these guys are tired. They might need a joke, right? I might need to tell a joke just to pick them up, right?
Mhm.
When we don't feel like taking infield, outfield, or whatever it may be, he'll say a joke, make everybody laugh, and we forget about how tired our legs are. So like all these different things are, yes, you got to win, but you also want to see the players as human beings and knowing how they're away from their families, right? Some of them are thousands of miles away from their
Mm.
loved ones, and you're not seeing your wife for 6 months, or you don't see your kids for 4 months, or whatever it may be. So like a lot of them, they understood, and so not only were we trying to win, but we were trying to win the right way.
Chris, you are originally from Charleston. This is correct, right?
Yep, that's where I'm from. That's where I am. And I always tell people that's where I'll be. I love this city, and they wrap their arms around me. So this is home.
Charleston
It's a
is
great
probably
food
my
city.
favorite city. Yeah, it's my favorite city in the United States. I
I love
I,
that.
I love it. There's something magical about it. But I got to be honest, every time I go to Charleston, the first restaurant that my family always eats at is always the biggest disappointment. And you would think that I've learned my lesson after like going there 5 times, but we always stop at Hyman's Seafood Restaurant, and I'm always disappointed in Hyman's. I'm like, what am I doing? So what's going on with Hyman's? Should we just forget Hyman's that restaurant and
I
just
can't
go
throw
to
them under
some?
the rug too much because I feel like they are a Charleston staple, right?
Oh my
And
gosh.
they've got good hush puppies. We were talking about hush puppies earlier. They
They
got some
do
good
got
hush
good hush
puppies.
puppies. They got some
Um,
good
I
hush puppies.
I do have some other favorite spots though. That
What are,
that
what
one's
are,
definitely like a more touristy spot, like everybody knows it.
Oh,
But I've got like a Google Doc of just places that when people come to Charleston, they hit me up, and I'm like, hey, here's my list. You're welcome.
all right.
So
And
I
what are the
got that
highlights?
for you.
What are the
give me
highlights, Chris?
three. Give us
I've been
three.
to slightly north of Broad. I've been to Magnolias. Those were both great. I haven't been to that seafood restaurant, Nathaniel, but I'm not a
Don't
seafood fan.
go.
Chris, what you
Don't
got?
go.
What are your top three?
Yeah, if we're going steakhouse, I'd go Oak Steakhouse. That's like my favorite steakhouse here. Brazilian steakhouse is called Galpão Gaúcho, which is
Ooh,
downtown. I think it's on Queen Street. Phenomenal Brazilian steakhouse. Bring
yep.
out all the meats. You
Got a
eat.
picanha, babe. It's all just bring the
Oh
picanha.
yeah, you can eat till you can't eat anymore. Um, and then if you want to go a little bit more low key, there's a restaurant that's not a fine dining place, but it is on the water on Shim Creek in Mount Pleasant, and it's
Mm,
called Saltwater Cowboys. You might get lucky and see a dolphin,
Mm.
coming by, and you can show your kids if you got kids or your wife, and she's gonna be like, "Wow, how'd you find this spot?" We got this is I'm eating $20, fried shrimp, right? So it's not
yep.
like fine dining, but it is good food, and it's a great location. So when I do like my meetings with people down here, I usually like to go to Saltwater Cowboys. Man, you're by the
There you go.
water. It's not too
There you go.
hot. It's a great place. And I always think you need to know where you're at. You need to know, who was on the land before you, what happened, all these different things.
Yeah.
And so Charleston definitely has a plethora of that.
I love it. And you know what? Savannah's overrated. Just
I
go to
love
Charleston.
Savannah.
Don't mess
No,
with Savannah.
get that out of here. Savannah's great.
This whole
Chris,
Twin
Chris, weigh
Cities
in. Weigh
thing.
in.
We
Savannah,
call so when I think about Savannah, we say that's like our sister city, right? But it's like our little sister. It's like our,
Little
you
sister.
know, toddler sister, right?
Your little annoying sister that just keeps showing up. You know what I mean? I don't know.
I respect
Not
it
a
though. I respect Savannah, and they got the Savannah Bananas, which are unbelievable teams. So
yeah.
Chris, to take a little pivot, um, many of our listeners might know your story or at least parts of it. For those who don't, just can you share it with us and let us know what you go around the country talking about?
yeah, so the reason why I started speaking, the reason why I do the work that I do today, is it has nothing to do with baseball. It's because 10 years ago, I lost my mom in a very, very tragic way at Mother Emanuel Church, AME, downtown Charleston, historically black church. There was a young man who was 21 years young, who was a self-proclaimed white supremacist who came to our church with 8 magazines of bullets. And, he took 9 lives during Bible study. And one of those lives happened to be my mom, who was a track coach. She was our children's church pastor, and she was a speech language pathologist at my high school. And my mom was killed. And following that, I said, I'm going to be the opposite of this guy. And so for the last, 8 years of my life, I've been traveling around the country and the world, reminding people that we don't choose our skin color, we don't choose where we're from, we don't choose our first language, and just teaching people how do we live in harmony, right? And spreading that love. So that's the mission that I'm on. It all stemmed from losing my hero, my biggest fan, and my mom.
I'm so
Mm,
sorry, Chris.
I appreciate
yeah.
that.
Yeah. I watched your when we were preparing for this podcast, we watched your TEDx talk. It was in Charleston, I believe, right? It was in Charleston. It was
Yeah.
fantastic. What were some of
Powerful.
the highlights of that TEDx talk? Because that being able to, you got 20 minutes, right, max, to be able to share a story that's going to be resonating with you. You never know who it's going to resonate with. What were some of the key messages and the key, those points that you wanted to get across in that TEDx talk?
Absolutely. By the way, when I did the TEDx talk, I was like, oh, this is going to get 50 million views. This is going to go crazy viral. I was like, this is so good, right? And I don't even, it wasn't even, didn't even sniff that, right? But when
It
when I
was
did
great.
it, man, the story, I've seen how it's resonated with so many people because my mission is all about unity and living in harmony, even if we have to agree to disagree respectfully. And I feel like that's so important. And in this talk that I gave, I basically said there's a story behind every single stance. And I've actually written a book that's called Stories Behind Stances. And
Mm,
so when you hear somebody's stance on whatever it may be, right? It could be political, it could be, their faith or whatever it is. Before you judge them based on their stance, know that they've got a story. There's a story behind it. And so when a Southerner comes to you and says they like ham hocks and macaroni and cheese and chitlins and all these different things, and you're
mm,
and you're from Boston, you're like, what are you talking about? And you might be judging them, but there's a story. Their grandma might have cooked that for them as a kid. It might be a comfort meal for them. There's always a story behind everything, and that in that specific talk, I talked about guns for me. And so how
mm,
I lost my mom, and a guy walked in with 8 magazines, fired over 70 rounds into our church. And so when I think about guns, I get uncomfortable because of my story. And
mm,
on the flip side, somebody that's gone hunting their whole lives, and their whole life, and like they go on these hunting trips or they go to the shooting range with their family and friends. Like there's a different perspective there because that's been their family thing. Whereas for me, I
mm.
lost my family to a weapon. And so like that's what I've always thought. Hey, if we stop and think about the story behind the stance, there can be harmony, even if we agree to disagree respectfully. And so that's what I
Mhm.
like to share when it comes to how we can work with somebody that thinks a little different than us, how we can serve alongside somebody that believes different than we do. So there's just reminding people there's a story behind every single stance.
Chris, that's, I think, the the time that we're living in, maybe, maybe more so than ever. Um, we don't do that. And the word that comes to mind, like when I listen to your TEDx talk and when I've reviewed your book, boils down to empathy. Um, And I think so many times we try to justify our own echo chamber. We try to justify our own hemisphere of interest. And instead of having conversations where we're learning each other's stances, we try to justify our own stance at the expense of everyone else. So your story, you know, it goes back to like what you had to live through. Have you had to share that story with people that are diametrically opposed to your stance, or is it about like how do you find common ground when you've been through something so traumatic?
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm curious if you've actually had to practice those stances in real life coming from someone who's has been so impacted by that. If that makes
All the
sense.
time. Yeah, I'll give you an example. I was speaking to a sheriff's association down in West Palm Beach in Florida, and I'm sharing the fact that I don't like guns, and every single one of those officers has a weapon on their hip, you know?
Yeah, right.
And so you talk about an audience that thinks totally different. But after my talk, they're coming up to me and saying, Chris, I get it. Man, you gave me a different perspective today because it's all about a perspective. That's all, that's literally all that it is. And they're saying, Chris, now I can understand. Before they're like, Chris, I would have thought, man, you should have had a gun and you should have been there with your mom. Maybe you could have
Mm,
saved, blah, 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 blah. They would say that. And when they heard my story and they felt the pain that I'd gone through, they said, you know what? I can still be a person that wants to have a weapon on my hip to protect myself and my family, but I can understand why this person gets uncomfortable around them because I heard this story and it touched me deeply. Now, what has to happen is we have to put ourselves in the shoes of somebody else, and I feel like storytelling is so important when I speak because that is what allows people to do that. And so if I just say, hey, man, the facts are this many people die to gun violence every year. There's this many mass shootings every year. People are hearing this stuff all the time. But when you
Yep.
finally, when they're hearing a personal story about being impacted, they're like, man, I can feel Chris's pain when he shared that story. And now I can understand why he thinks the way that he does. Yes, I've heard the statistics. Yes, I've heard this or that, but it hasn't changed my perspective. But when
mm,
I'm in the shoes of Chris, hearing about how he lost his mom, and he's telling his brother who's 12, his sister who's 15, that we won't have mom again because a guy walked into his church and fired over 70 bullets, man, I felt that in my soul. And so for the
mm,
first time, I'm like, okay, I don't have to change the fact that I want to protect my family with a weapon to understand why this guy gets uncomfortable around him. And I've shared that on both sides, on every side. That's what part of my mission is. I never want somebody to feel like, oh, Chris doesn't get it from my perspective. No, because I share both sides of every stance and story. And so I want
mhm.
everybody to feel like, man, okay, I'm felt like I'm heard. Like I feel like he understands where I'm coming from, just the same way, I understand where he's coming from. So I share it
Yeah.
quite frequently.
Chris, I know
When
you've
you,
talked in a lot of schools about this.
Yeah.
mhm.
So how has your message how has it come across with schools? What kind of feedback have you heard from students and from staff members? And how has it changed you?
Yeah,
Mm,
man. So I'd say I've spoken up easily like 200 schools over the last like 8 years, right? It's been tons of schools, middle schools, high schools, elementary schools. When I'm at elementary schools, I read my kids' books, so it's a lot different, right?
mm,
But I would say middle schools and high schools, it's all about reminding them, hey, nobody chooses how much money our parents do or don't have. And so the joke you may make about this person wearing the same jeans for a couple, 2, 3 days out of the week, like you think it's something small, but to them it's not. To them it's huge. To them, you don't know what they're going through at home. Right? Reminding them, hey, we don't choose our first language. This person just came from a different country and they're learning English, man. Right? You know how hard
mm.
we know how hard it is to learn a different language, Nathaniel, right? And
That's
so
right.
just having that perspective of, hey, man, they don't choose these different things. And then remind them how powerful their voice is, right? Their voice is so powerful. And sometimes the power is just not laughing when you hear somebody saying something they shouldn't say, right? Because that's
Hmm.
powerful too. And so what I've learned from going to these different places is I used to think, man, my story is so sad. I lost my parents as a teenager. I raised my brother and sister at
Mm,
a pretty young age, and didn't know what we were doing, my wife and I, but we did the best we could, and now they're doing well in their lives. So like I thought my story was too harsh for middle schoolers and high schoolers. When I
Mhm.
have gone to these schools, I've realized how many students are going through tough things just like I was. Like it's like I almost forgot that my brother was 12 when we lost our mom.
Yeah.
No,
Mm.
these kids are, 13 years old and they lost a grandparent and they have no idea what to do. They don't know how to talk to mom or dad sometimes. Like sometimes they lost a dog. That pain is there. And so me sharing how I can get through, how I've gotten through pain without, vaping, without, turning to drugs and all these different things. I feel like it's powerful. And I've learned that, man, they're going through things just like I was, just like you were, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
And, obviously social media, it amplifies it. But given
Yeah.
those tools to help get through those things has been a journey. And it's given me so much validation knowing that I'm doing the right thing.
Mhm.
But it also keeps me going because middle school is not an easy audience, right? If you can speak
No,
to
it's
middle
not.
school, you can
It's a
speak to
hard audience.
Congress, right? If you can speak to middle schoolers. And so when I'm speaking to middle schoolers and you can hear a pin drop and they're locked in, and I'm like, man, okay, I'm really getting through to them. And it lets me know afterwards. They're like, man, Chris, you shared this, and like this meant the world to me. Like not even a month ago, a girl told me, "Hey, Chris, you came to my school 4 years ago when I was a freshman. I'm a senior now.
Wow.
My parents got divorced that week when you came, and you said this quote about how you can't control the action, but you can control your reaction." And that like
Mhm.
gave me a different perspective that I couldn't control my parents divorcing, but like I can control how I was gonna act, and if I was gonna make it worse for them, or if I was gonna say, you know
Mm.
what, this is our new normal. Like I'll never forget when you shared that, Chris. Like these things they're sharing with me, man, it stays with me and it motivates me to keep going.
Yeah. Your
That's
story,
fantastic.
the roots of why you're doing this are so incredibly sad, but kudos to you for turning a tragedy into a way to inspire so many people. And I'm sure for every story you hear, there are thousands you will never know about. So
Mm.
congrats to you for inspiring so many students, making them feel, making them empathize, and helping them know, like you just said, you can get past hardships and um man, you're doing a great service, Chris. Hey Chris, where can people, we do this at the end usually, but I want to do it right here. Where can people find you? So for all those schools out there watching this, like I need to book this guy, schools, you're correct, you should. Where can they find you, Chris?
Yeah, the website's chrissingleton.com. So that's where everybody brings me in. chrissingleton.com. So yeah, I'd love to be there.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Chris, when we share our stories with others, and like you're talking about, we open up the opportunity for others to share stories with us. And you've also talked about that perspective stance, and I kind of want to like lean into that a little bit more. What stories have you heard, or what lessons have you learned that may have been counter to your stance that's helped you grow with this journey, so to speak?
I'll give you an example. So I've always been one that's opposed to politics. Like I've never liked politics, man. I thought it's been just I'm like this. I'm a person that wants to bring people together. I feel like politics is the opposite of that. And
Opposite.
I've
Yeah.
met yeah, and I've met people on both sides where they're like, Chris, politics gives you a different power of your voice, right? There's people that you'll meet when you're knocking on doors. There's things that you'll learn about the community that you're in that you won't learn unless you're in politics. And I've always politics just like make my stomach hurt. Like I didn't like
Yeah.
it ever. And I don't know if I'll ever get into it,
Mm.
but I would hear stuff and that was like the opposite of what I've thought like my whole life. I've always thought politicians are mean and this or that on both sides. That's just what I've always thought my whole life until I've met people personally. I'm like, man, this person is amazing, and this person helped pay for my sister's school, right? This person did this person. I'm like, I would have never thought they would do that. And so like learning these things from actually meeting people and having these conversations has definitely changed my perspective on issues like politics. So that's one that directly affected my life because I would have never even wanted to talk to a politician beforehand. Another thing, I this is kind of deep
Yeah.
in in realness of my story, but I've always been opposed to the death penalty. Like I've never, like even my mother's killer. I said hopefully he gets life in prison without the possibility of parole, right? Never set free, obviously, right? Took nine beautiful souls, right? Took nine
Mm.
lives. So I would never want this guy to walk free. But I didn't think definitely was right. But there's some people that were like, hey, Chris, this guy's never said sorry. They're like, hey, Chris, he's never said um, my actions were wrong. He's never denounced what he did. And like all these different things they're sharing with me, like, Chris, this pain that I feel, like family members. So like it changes my mind when I hear what they're going through daily. So
Mm.
there are so many times in my life where I'm like, hey, this is where I stand firm on this, but I can hear this perspective and I'm like, you know what? I get it. I don't have to change
Mm.
where I am and where I stand, but I get where they're coming from. Those are two examples that have affected me directly.
Wow. The relationship, and it's a weird, funky relationship. When you talk about the the person that committed this heinous crime. Um, and then you're talking about he never said he's sorry, or he never showed any kind of like understanding. One of the things that I think about when I see these horrific tragedies is I I try to think about that person's family, like that person's mom, that person's father, that person's child. And I try, because you never hear about it, right? You don't hear about their story, their stance, and what went wrong, or were they, had any kind of culpability in promulgating something like this. Um, those are things that I think about as an outsider. Um, do you think about their family, that the
Yeah.
stance that that family has?
That's a great question, and I do so much so that I was actually speaking at an engagement, and I think it was I think it was the National Goodwill Conference, like all the different Goodwill stores across the world, or the International Goodwill Conference. And I'm speaking, and this guy came up to me and said, "Hey, your story today was phenomenal, but it touched me personally because I went to high school with the guy that took your mom away, his dad."
Wow.
And he said, I still have his number. And immediately I was like, you know what? I would my goal is to get to the root of where some of this evil comes from, to try to do away with that root. Yes, it's
Mm.
stuff online they see. Yes, it's parents, grandparents not teaching them to love everybody. Yes, it's all these different things. But I'm like, what is that root that I can get to? And so I would love to talk to this guy. Um, Now, when he called the dad for me, who's since passed away,
Oh wow.
he said, Chris, he's not in a good space mentally. Like, I don't think it would be good on either side for you to talk to him. And so I didn't. But I've always thought, man, if I'm constantly teaching love to my kids, teaching, like, these are some staples, some pillars in their life that they will say, you know what, when I grow up, my dad always taught me, hey, it doesn't matter if a person's speaking Mandarin, Portuguese, Spanish, English, right? They didn't choose their first language, right? My dad taught me that. I want my kids to say that when they grow up. I want my kids to know, hey, it doesn't matter how much somebody does or doesn't have. No kid chooses how much what their parents' job is, right? My dad taught me that. And so I definitely wanted to get to the root of it because I'm an extreme optimist. I
Mm.
think parents that love their kids, teachers that teach love to their classrooms, like, I really think that stuff makes a difference. And although there will bad things happen, I think that the power of a parent, the power of a teacher, the power of a girlfriend or boyfriend in high school or something, right? That can change people's perspective when it comes to hate. And so I definitely have thought about, the whole parent grandparent thing for him, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and I want to make sure I teach my kids the right way for sure.
Mindset matters for sure. Chris, we've touched on some challenging stuff. What's bringing you joy right now?
What's bringing me joy? Bringing me joy is I got three beautiful kids. I've got a 7-year-old named CJ. I've got a 3-year-old named Kaden. And I've got my grand finale baby, is what I call her, because she's the last one, right? My baby girl, her name is Carter Ray. She'll be 2 in a week, and not even a week actually, in a couple of
Wow.
days now. But
That's
she'll be
right. That's
2.
awesome.
Um, and they bring me joy. They bring me joy, man. My son just finished All Stars for baseball. We won our district championship. I'm coaching my little man now. We
Oh,
Congrats.
watch out for travel. Once you get in travel, it's all over, man. You know.
we did a little travel here and there, but we have fun, man. So coaching him, I love playing golf. That's like what brings me joy, even though
Oof.
I don't have joy when I'm on the course, right? But
Talk
the
about
morning
short
of, I'm
memory,
hyped.
man.
Let's go, right? You start playing, it's all downhill. But I
Oh
love
man.
I love the battle of playing golf and chasing that. Right now I'm trying to break 80 right now, so that's like my goal for this year. And so like that joy is there. Um, just being around my family, that brings me joy. So all these different things bring me joy, man. And I'm optimistic. I write kids books. If you write children's books, you gotta be a person that thinks the world is still a beautiful place, right? If you write
It's hard, man.
And so I just wrote a children's book called Love Your Neighbor, which, one of my favorite line in the book is, or my favorite page, it says, what if my neighbor doesn't look like me? What if their skin is darker or lighter? What if their hair is looser or tighter? What if their skin is wrinkled or rough? And it says, why should it matter? Love is enough. And so I'm still
Mm.
teaching that love to students. So that brings me joy when I'm at elementary schools too. So, man, all these different things bring me joy. I'm still a very optimistic and lighthearted person, even though I've been through some really, really hard things in my life.
Man, that's
Yeah,
beautiful. Hey,
that
Chris,
is
what else do you
beautiful.
think schools could do to help with
Say it
that?
again.
What else do you think schools could do to help convey that message you're talking about?
Mm.
You know what I love to see when I go to an elementary school, middle school, high school, when I see all the different flags from countries where, grandparents or parents are from, and they have those big celebrations of like, for my family, we're bringing in feijão tropeiro, we're bringing in some picanha, right? We're bringing it like all these different cultures, bringing foods and stuff like that. I think that's so cool. Like when I go to a school district and they say, hey, we've actually got 54 languages in our school district. I'm like, what? Because America's like a melting pot of everywhere.
Yeah.
And so when I hear those things, I'm like, man, that's awesome. That's so cool. This is how we celebrate our community. So that's what I feel like schools are already doing, and they're going to continue to do. Um, but yeah, everybody's in on this mission of just making sure every student feels loved, no matter where they're from, what they look like, and I think that's a beautiful thing.
Chris, do we like to end with, do you have any words of hope and inspiration for our audience of educators?
Yeah, the hope and inspiration is remembering the impact that everybody makes. I've talked about my high school basketball coach and PE teacher, Coach Blake Hall, who I called when I found out my wife was pregnant. I'm like, hey, coach, I don't know how this happened. He's like, well, you know how it happened, right? So I'm like, what am I going to do? He's like, I got you, man. You're good. I didn't talk about my second grade teacher, Miss Burrows, who told me that I was colorblind, and I thought I was like done for. You're second grade, you're reading chapter books, and I colored myself green thinking it was brown. And the worst moment of my life at a young age, she's like, Chris, no, you're good. Like you're the best reader in the class. Just get crayons that have words on them. You're fine. And it's like, ooh, okay, I'm not, less than. And I just found her again. She's no longer Miss Burrows. She's Miss Bays now. I found her. I'm like a little kid again. Like, Miss Burrows, I found you. I've been looking for you on Facebook. I'm always talking about you in my speeches when I'm speaking to teachers. And she's like, yeah, Chris, well, I got married. You weren't going to find Miss Burrows anymore. And so, like, there's just so much impact that educators make that sometimes you're like, man, I really hope that they're grasping what I'm sharing with them. I hope it's not one ear in one ear, out the other ear. And sometimes, it may be with middle schoolers, especially, right? It may be, but 90% of the time, man, it's sticking to them. And the same stuff you're sharing with them, the same stuff that they'll be sharing with their kids one day, because I'm doing that right now. So I just want to encourage them to keep going, keep sharing those little nuggets, keep putting those quotes on the board, keep inspiring them because that stuff matters.
Thank you so much for sharing your journey, sharing the journey of Charleston, right? Sharing the journey of leadership and sharing the journey of your mother, right? So inspiring, and sharing this journey of empathy and listening to each other, just like, there's an old thing that says, that we have two ears and one mouth for a reason, right? because we got to listen twice as hard before we speak. And I just think if we just take a little bit of time and just say, all right, before I open my mouth, let me just hear where my brother and sister is coming from. And then maybe respond, and then maybe try to share that. I think we just need to just pause a little bit more to learn and from each other, then we can love each other a little bit more. So I'm inspired by everything that you do. Chris Singleton, God bless you, man. Thank you so much for everything that you do. Obrigado, brother. Hang back. Thanks for joining us, man, on the Community Connection. We really appreciate it. Thank you.